Hey everyone, fascinating guest and topic today, diving into the world of AGI. What's next with Peter Voss at Ago? Peter, how are you?
Very good. Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. You have a fascinating background and story. I have so many questions. Before that, maybe introduce yourself and your mission with the team. And you have quite a vision. I'd love to hear it.
Yes, absolutely. I've really spent the last 20 years or 25 years uh, focusing on artificial general intelligence. In fact, I coined the term in 2002 together with two other people. And I've been on a mission since then to get to human level, human like AI intelligence. And I think we're getting really quite close, but that's the mission I'm on.
Well, that's an exciting time to be in this space, and you've been a pioneer in AI for many years. Maybe share a little bit about your journey and your background that kind of led you to where you are today.
Yes, absolutely. I started out as electronics, working as an electronics engineer, then started my own industrial electronics company. But then I fell in love with software, and my company turned very quickly into a software company. Then I developed an ERP software system for a small to medium-sized business, and that turned out to be quite successful. Went from the garage to 400 people and an IPO, and so that those were exciting times. But it's when I exited that company, what really struck me is that software isn't really very smart by itself. It doesn't have common sense. It can't learn. And even though I was very proud of the software that we developed, it's a program. It didn't think of something. It would just crash or give you an error message or something. So that's really how I embarked on this journey of trying to figure out how to build machines that can think, learn, and reason the way humans do. And so I took off 5 years just to study all different aspects of intelligence, starting with epistemology, the theory of knowledge. How do we know anything? What is reality? Do we have free will? And what's consciousness and stuff like that? Also studied cognitive psychology. How do children learn? What do IQ tests measure? How does what makes our intelligence special relative to animals? And then, of course, I also studied what had already been done in the field of AI. And so the culmination of that really got me started then on a building. I came up with a theory of how to build a thinking machine. And then I assembled a team and we started building various prototypes and so on. And that's a journey I've been on.
Wow, pretty deep topic today. Maybe start with conversational AI, something top of mind to everyone in the contact center and call center space. You talk about building true conversational AI. There are hundreds of different approaches, vendors, solutions out there. How do you see the AI, conversational AI market evolving, and where do you fit on this landscape exactly?
Yeah, good question. So because we never really got very substantial funding. I mean, I had some funding from the company that I sold, but not enough to really build up a big team to kind of rapidly get to human level AI. So what I've done twice is actually to commercialize the technology as we develop it. So when we had our first generation intelligence engine going, we then commercialized it in the call center space quite successfully. But our approach has always been very different in conversational AI, whereas pretty much everybody in the call center automation space still uses the approach of essentially IVR's 30-year-old approach of building flowcharts. And you go down a flowchart, and this is
Mm,
why people get so frustrated with these things. The flowchart is built, and then if it doesn't fit in exactly into your flowchart, the conversation you're having, then people just press zero, that get me to an operator. And chatbots are really still much the same, that it's essentially a flowchart with very sophisticated tools that are now available to develop these flowcharts and using large language models for intent recognition and so on. But still, there's no real cognition behind. There's no reasoning. There's no learning. With our approach, we call it a cognitive AI approach. you really have an intelligence engine that manages the whole conversation. And that engine has short-term memory, long-term memory, the ability to reason. So it remembers what you said in previous conversations, and it can reason about things. So that really makes it different. And our approach doesn't suffer from hallucinations because we train our system with we focus on the quality of data, not the quantity. It's sort of absurd trying to have um, a, a service call conversation and it got trained on 10 trillion pieces of information. And that's obviously where a lot of the hallucinations and that come from. The data it was trained on is, massive, good, bad, and ugly. Whereas our approach has really been to have the quality of information, to have accuracy uh, built in. So it's a very, very different approach from, the big data approach that pretty much everybody else is following.
Yeah, fascinating. And, personalization seems like something that you focus on, the ability to remember and learn from past interactions. I just wish my phone company knew who I am every time I called it and has some
Yeah.
history of our interaction together. How do we get there? How do we get to a true personalized user experience? And, can we do that with today's technology?
Well, it can be done, as we've proven with our commercialization. Um, one of our customers that we service is 1-800-Flowers, Harry and David group of companies, and a few months ago at Valentine's Day, we very successfully replaced 3,000 agents. They have these massive
Wow.
spikes for just 3 or 4 days. And even though a customer could ask for an agent at any time, 90% of the calls, and most of them were pretty complex type of calls where people want to, change the order, have a refund, or something more complex to deal with. So the technology exists, um, but what we've actually decided in our company is to put our commercialization on hold to focus 100% to really truly get to human level in intelligence in AGI. Because the state of the art of the technology right now, even the best technology still requires an enormous amount of human intervention to actually set up the system, to train it, and so on. Now, once we get to AGI, proper artificial general intelligence, then the system will basically be able to learn by itself autonomously, like you would expect a human to do. You hire somebody for your call center, for your service application. You give them the manuals and they'll have some questions. They'll listen into some conversations. They'll have more questions. So they learn on the job very quickly if you're smart and already have kind of the background knowledge. And that is really the future of automation, is where the system can configure or can learn itself like a human. Um, it can actually do it better than a human because it'll be able to also figure out how to connect to the APIs. It can read the API documentation and say, okay, fine,
Mm.
I can grab this information from the back end.
Yeah, very promising opportunities. And you talk about AGI a lot. No one quite knows how we get from here to there. What is your view how we get to AGI? Is it just better language models? Is there some radical new approach? Is it some breakthrough that we haven't yet discovered? What is the potential or scenarios or pathways to
Yeah.
AGI?
So a couple of ways of looking at that. I think the consensus is growing that large language models are not going to get us to AGI. In fact, chief scientist of Meta, Jan LeCun, a few weeks ago said very emphatically that large language models are an off-ramp to AGI, a distraction, a dead end.
Mm.
Put it very forcefully, and I would agree with him. But even the head of Google AI, Demis Hassabis, says we need some new breakthroughs, some new ideas. Deep learning, machine learning is not going to get us there, not by a long shot. He said. Now, so what is the answer? What is it? Well, if we look at how absurd the current approach is, where you're talking about spending $7 trillion to build nuclear power stations and whatnot, and massive data centers to get there, when our brain uses 20 watts, not 20 gigawatts. A child can learn language and reasoning with maybe 5 million or 10 million words, not 10 or 20 trillion tokens. So we really need an approach that is much more efficient, both in data usage and power. Um, and that approach, DARPA actually calls it the third wave of AI, where the first wave was good old-fashioned AI, expert systems, sort of logic-based systems like IBM's Deep Blue would have been a good example of that, the world chess champion. That was the
Mm.
first wave. And the second wave is the one we're surfing right now. That's all about big data, machine learning. You know, the large companies have a lot of data, they have a lot of compute, so that's kind of the hammer they've got, and they try to find as many nails as they can. But the third wave of AI, according to DARPA, is really cognitive AI, where the focus is all about adaptive learning and conceptual learning, where you are learning incrementally, one thing at a time, the way a human does, and you make sense of it. You say, well, does this make sense? Is there something new? Do I have some questions about this? Does it contradict stuff that I already know? So you build your knowledge systematically from the ground up, layer by layer, as you learn new things. But you also question it, you clarify things, and that requires massively less data. As I say, much closer to like a child, maybe 5 or 10 million words that they really need to get competent with language and reasoning. So that's the approach we've been working on, called cognitive AI, as opposed to statistical or generative AI. And I see that as a future for AGI. It just hasn't had much love yet.
Well, fascinating topic. In the meantime, enterprises have next quarter, next month's targets to meet, and
Mhm.
they're looking for practical use cases and adoption. And as amazing as OpenAI is, and I'm a huge fan of
Mhm.
ChatGPT, there are challenges to just implementing it as is in any enterprise. What do you think about those challenges in the enterprise environment? How do we get real adoption, real utility today, given all the concerns that exist out there in the enterprise?
Right. So I think what enterprise are finding, we deal with a lot of large enterprise companies, and 18 months ago, it was all wow. When ChatGPT came out, we've got to
Mm,
use this technology to solve all of our problems. And of course, consultants and companies were very happy to jump in and say, yes, it'll solve all your problems. Now, a year, 18 months later, I think companies are realizing more and more that, yes, these large language models are incredibly powerful, but they have inherent limitations. The limitations of uh, they make up stuff. I mean, it's in the description, GPT, generative. It makes up stuff, and
mm,
it's pre-trained. It's trained at the factory at $100 million worth, or now they're talking about even $100 billion it may cost to train newer models. Anyway, some absurdly, expensive exercise to train these models, but they read only. They cannot update their knowledge in real time. So these are really serious limitations that people try to overcome with external databases and bigger input buffers, but they don't address the core problem that these systems uh, cannot update their model in real time. And they don't have metacognition. They don't know what they're saying. They don't, it's not like
mm,
humans. We have system one and system two thinking, the sort of deliberate thinking that we can be aware of what we're saying and whether it makes sense or how certain we are of things. So I don't see that large language models are going to overcome that. There will obviously be more and more use cases like generating videos and so on. But then once it becomes a commodity, then how do you make money out of it? If everybody and his brother can generate an hour-long movie with relatively little effort, or new music, and write articles and so on, what's the value in this? Yeah, as long as with large language models, you always need a human in the loop, and that
Mm.
really kills the effectiveness. If you always need a human in the loop anyway, you have the cost of the human. And I'm seeing that when I use tools for programming. I program every day, and if I use the tools, half the time they may give me the right answer and produce the right code, but maybe a third of the time they give me the wrong answer, and then I end up spending more time trying to figure out, well, am I not thinking about this correctly, or did the system give me the wrong answer? And so they're not, it's not like they just magically can solve all your programming problems either. They can be a effective tool, but the human needs to be in the loop. And we need to get away from that. We need to get away from, gigawatts of processing of
Mm.
hundreds of millions of dollars of training and massive amounts of data to get to truly intelligent systems.
Wow. Well, that's an exciting insight. I mean, the other eye-opening phenomenon with large language models has been just this amazing potential user experience. No one's really seen anything like it in terms of the chatbots with ChatGPT and others. How do you see the user experience evolving? You've got voice mode at ChatGPT coming out,
Mhm.
I think this week, even to some users. Very human-like interactions, really kind of amazing and shocking to show what can be done. But how do you see
Yeah.
the future of UI, UX, the customer experience, given the state of the art?
Yes, I mean it really is amazing on how fluid they can be in language, and now,
Mm,
as you say, with voice and how realistic they can sound. That's a whole new ballgame. I mean, these machines are amazing in terms of the experience that you get. Now, in terms of not distinguishing them from a human, I think that's actually a problem. And in our company, we've always very much try to convince our customers that they should always be very clear that the customer is talking to a machine. Customers often say, "Oh,
mm,
I want you to set up the system that it sounds just like a human." So, no, please don't do that. You don't really want the system to then uh, starting a conversation about the weather or the cousin or the cricket scores or whatever. You just don't want to do that with the computer. So I think it's important that people are upfront that this is a machine that can be much much
mm,
better than talking to a human. You can get stuff done
mm.
very quickly, very accurately, and so on, and you can have this amazing experience. But I think it's a mistake to fake to fake humans, or not to be upfront with it. But it doesn't matter how good the user experience is if the system isn't smart enough, if it makes mistakes, if it doesn't understand you, um, then it's actually in a way worse. You're led down this garden path of thinking you're dealing with a really intelligent system, and then it does non-intelligent things. So it's
Mm.
great that we have the user experience. So in a way, ChatGPT has given us a taste of AGI. We seem to be so close, but in other ways, we are so far away from true human level AI.
Do you have any predictions? Are you a betting man when we might see AGI? Is it a year, 5, 10, never? And how will we know when
Right.
someone claims to have
Yeah.
reached AGI?
Well, of course, I'm a betting man. I've bet all of my money and my time on my company, on AGI, and the approach that we have. So absolutely. Now, in terms of time prediction, I usually answer that question by saying it's not. I don't measure it in time. I measure it in dollars, because I believe we already have enough hardware, and there aren't fundamental breakthroughs required on the hardware side or even on the algorithmic side. But it requires just a shift. There needs to be some, you know, non-trivial money that goes into the right approach, the small data, the accurate approach, the cognitive AI approach. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that yet. At the moment, investors are all about momentum investing. Where's all the money
Mm,
going? Where are all the high valuations? that's where they put their money. So I think there needs to be a shift over where, and I think that's happening soon because people are becoming disillusioned with the amount of money that's going into generative AI relative to the revenue. It's the revenue potential. There are, I'm sure you've seen articles saying the numbers don't add up. That this bubble
Mm,
is going to burst. So then I think we will see the shift over to other approaches like neurosymbolic approaches, which ours is a kind of neurosymbolic approach, um, and we can have human level AI in less than 5 years, according to my predictions, given the right
wow.
effort being put into it.
Yeah, exciting to see it happen. Or, well, at least watch it unfold. In the meantime, for us enterprise geeks, we have lots of landmines to overcome today as we deploy different services, data privacy, data protection, big issues around ethical use. And how do you see some of those roadblocks, and can they be overcome in the short term?
Well, in the short term, it requires a lot of engineering, a lot of human
Mm,
ingenuity, to put the guardrails around, to tune these systems, and to, I
mm,
mean, basically layers and layers of guardrails to make them more reliable, to make them more usable. So there's an enormous amount of work to be done right now to overcome these problems, as you say, security and privacy. Um, but there's also enormous amount of money flowing into it. The question really is, which of these endeavors are actually make sense, or end up being cost effective. Now, once we get to AGI, we can then use the intelligence of the system to help us deal with these problems. Where the systems
mm,
themselves can help us think that through. Because clearly one of the things you can do with AGI, once you truly have human level ability to think, reason, and learn, um, these systems, um, you can train them and set them off to basically do research and finding out how to make the system more secure. How to deal with privacy issues, and um,
mm,
so the systems themselves will be able to help us. I mean, just generally in research, imagine you have one AGI that trains itself up to be a cancer researcher. To take a different field now. Um,
mm,
it trains itself like a human. It can learn by itself, except it's not going to take 7 years to get to PhD level. Now you can make 1 million copies of that, and you have 1 million PhD level cancer researchers that can communicate with each other and share information and so on. We'll make much faster progress, and this is going to be the case for really any endeavor that requires more intelligence. It can use more intelligence, and things like security, and power consumption, battery efficiency, pollution. All of those things can really just need a lot more brain power, a lot more IQ, and AGI will provide that.
well, bring it on. I can't wait personally, professionally. So I'm super excited. What about you? What are you excited about the rest of this year? Any particular industry initiatives, travel, events? What's on your radar the rest of the year?
Yeah, we are completely focused. As I mentioned, we've actually put our commercial business on hold because we realized it actually was too much of a distraction. We know what we need to
Mm,
do to get to human level AGI. So right now we are basically in money raising mode. We have a team of 12 people right now, but we're looking to expand that by 50 people, and then we have a roadmap, whereas within 2 years we can actually get to 10-year-old cognitive ability, and then shortly after that, college level. So we're putting together materials and doing networking and so on in order for us to scale up our system to accelerate our development. So that's the most exciting thing happening in my life, and I'm actually very happy that we are now just focused 100% on AGI, which has really been my mission for 20 plus years.
well, I can't wait to check in 1, 2, 5, 10 years and reflect on the the opportunity you described to see where we are. Thanks so much, Peter. Really enlightening and
Great.
interesting chat.
Yeah, thank you. Good question.
Thanks so much. Take care, Peter. Take care, everyone. Thanks.